Shalom. I hope that you are doing well today, truly. And I want to thank you for the support that you've showed to this channel, and all praises. And anything that we do is all praises only to exalt our Creator, Yahuwah. The study that I'm going to share with you today is one that I had done on the serpent. And it's not so much a really long study because I didn't go through, all scripture. But it would probably take about 45 minutes. So I'm going to break this study into two videos. And my disclaimer is that I am not a teacher. I am a student of the greatest teacher. And I want to share my study notes with my classmates. So again, just a messenger, just passing the message along, and I hope that you receive something from it. And I encourage you to write down the scripture and go back and study it for yourself. As always, don't just take what another person says to be solid. Now, if it's coming from his word, of course, but take the time to study it for yourself. And it really helps when you take and break things apart to get like a picture of what all of this really means. And my advice is learn as much as you can while you can, because one day the Ruha, that set apart spirit, it will be removed. Okay? Gather all your armor. We are all students and we're always learning, we're always growing. We will never know it all. And the moment that we think that we do, we have, like Hashatan, tried to exalt ourselves above the Most High. So, didn't bring the chalkboard today. But what we're looking at is serpent. And the Hebrew word for that is Strong's 5175, which is Nakash. Okay. Nakash definition is to practice divination, divine, observe signs, learn by experience, diligently observe, practice fortune telling, or take as omen. Echidna is the Greek. I think it's Strong's 2191. I can't read my own handwriting. But that is the mother of dragons, half woman, half snake. The myth is Ophis. But it's a noun masculine, and it's a serpent or snake used of the devil or Satan. So then we have Seraph, which is a fiery serpent. That's Strong's 8314. And Tanin, which is a sea serpent or dragon, which is 8577. So a serpent, it symbolizes death, destruction, evil, penetrating, legless essence, poison, temptation, and deceit. In Bereshith, Genesis, chapter 3, verse 1 through 4. And the serpent was more crafty than any beast of the field which Yahuwah Elohim had made. And he said to the woman, Is it true that Elohim has said, Do not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, We are to eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim has said, Do not eat of it, nor touch it, lest you die. And the serpent said to the woman, You shall certainly not die. Verse 13. And Yahuwah Elohim said to the woman, What is this you have done? And the woman said, The serpent deceived me, and I ate. And Yahuwah Elohim said to the serpent, Because you have done this, you are cursed more than all the livestock, more than every beast of the field. On your abdomen you are to go and eat dust all the days of your life. So we see prior to this, the serpent had limbs, then he was cursed to go on his belly. Verse 15 is talking about enmity between you and the woman, between your seed and her seed. He shall crush your head and you shall crush his heel. So we think about that. Why would there be between her seed and his seed? Okay, so let's keep that in mind. All right, so Genesis 49:17, this is where it's talking about the tribe of Dan. Dan also means judgment, or he that judges. Okay, Dan is a serpent by the way, an adder by the path, that bites the horse's heels so that its rider falls backward. Shemoth, which is Exodus 4, verse 3. Yahweh told Moses, to throw down the rod, and he said, Throw it on the ground. So he threw it on the ground, and it became a serpent. Okay, Moshe's rod became a serpent, and Moshe fled from it. Moshe also means drawn forth or taken out. Shemoth, Exodus 9 through 15. Read that scripture. I'm not going to read all of that for sake of time, but this is where Moses was 88 years old, and Aaron means blood is shed. He was 83 when they spoke to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh means a great house. Bemidbar, which is Numbers 21, 8 through 9. And Yahweh said to Moshe, make a fiery serpent and put it on a pole, and it shall be that every one who is bitten, when he looks at it, shall live. So Moshe made a bronze serpent and put it on a pole. And it came to be, if a serpent had bitten anyone, when he looked at the bronze serpent, he lived. Devarim, which is Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 15. This is about guarding the commands, okay, and being led out of the wilderness for 40, after being in the wilderness for 40 years. Who led you through that great and awesome wilderness? Fiery serpents and scorpions and thirst, where there was no water. Who brought water for you out of the flinty rock? Deuteronomy 32:24. This is in regard to the song of Moshe to all the assembly of Yisrael. Wasted by scarcity of food and consumed by heat and bitter destruction, and the teeth of beasts I send upon them with the poison of serpents of the dust. So you can go back and read that chapter as well for the song of Moshe. That's chapter 32. Melachim, which is 2 Kings 18:4. This is talking about where Hezekiah started to reign. That's what we know as Hezekiah, okay? And his name means my strength is Yahweh. He, Hezekiah, took away the high places and broke the pillars and cut down the Asherah. And Asherah, the pagan, is a pagan word. It means gladness, okay? And broke in pieces the bronze serpent which Moshe had made. For until those days the children of Israel burned incense to it and called it Nehushtan, okay? And that word means made of bronze. Asherah was a deity of the Canaanites. The Asherah pole was a sacred wooden post or pole or pillar that stood near the altar. Do a Google search on the Asherah pole and you will see that they're in several places, even in the United States. Yeshayahu, which is Isaiah chapter 14, verse 29. Do not rejoice, all you of Pereshith, which means land of sojourners, that the rod smote you as broken. For out of the serpent's roots comes forth an adder, and its offspring is a fiery flying serpent. Peleshith is a territory on the South Mediterranean coast of Palestine or Philistia. Isaiah 59:5. They have hatched adder's eggs, and they weave the spider's web. Whoever eats their eggs dies, and when one is broken, an adder is hatched. Yeshayahu 27:1. In that day, Yahweh with his severe sword, great and strong, punishes Leviathan, okay, which we know as Leviathan, and that means dragon or joint. The fleeing serpent, Leviathan, that twisted serpent, and he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. So this is the day when Yahweh comes out of his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their wickedness. And I encourage you to read all the scripture that goes along with the, I'm pulling verses with certain words in it for the serpent, but to really get an understanding of all of it in your time, you can go back and read all of the scripture, okay? A Leviathan is a wreathed animal, a serpent, a constellation of the dragon, also a symbol of Babylon. That's Hebrew Strong's 3867. Isaiah 30, verse 6 through 7. This is the message concerning the beast of the Negeb, which means to be parched, or the south. Through a land of trouble and distress, from which came the lioness and the lion and the adder and the fiery flying serpent. They convey their riches on the back of young donkeys, and their treasures on the humps of camels to an unprofitable people. Even Mitzrayim, which is Egypt, or defenses, whose help is vain and empty. Therefore I have called her Rahab Him Shebeth. And then there's a scroll written that says, rebellious people, lying children. Children refuse to hear the Torah of Yahweh. Okay, we heard Rahab, Hem, Shebeth. Rahab means pride, arrogance, or mystical sea creature. Hem means they or these. Shebeth is to cease, sit still, or seat, or dwelling. And if you put all that together, it's like proud and wealthy at rest. Okay, and there's also a verb that comes from him that sounds like Hawa, which is also similar to Eve's name, Hawa. Just a little side note. Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah, chapter 8, verse 17. This chapter is talking about the false pen of the scribe who has worked falsehood, and it goes on further that the snorting of his horses was heard from Dan, okay, which we heard Dan, he that judges, right? All right, verse 17. For look, I am sending among you serpents, adders, which have no enchanter, and they shall bite you, declares Yahweh. Jeremiah 46:22. This is the word of Yahweh when he came to Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah, concerning the Gentiles. For Mitzrayim, concerning the army of Pharaoh, which was great house. Nico, which is lame, and that's of Egyptian origin. Sovereign of Mitzrayim, which was led by the river Parath, which river Parath is fruitfulness or Euphrates. In Carchemish. Carchemish was a fortress of Chemosh, which is a pagan word, subduer. Okay, and which Nebuchadnezzar, which means Nebo protects the crown, the sovereign of Babel, which means confusion, had smitten in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, which means Yahweh raises up, son of Yoshiyahu, founded of Yahweh, sovereign of Yehuda, which means Yahweh will be praised. Verse 22, okay, it sounds move along like a serpent, for they move on like an army and come out against her with axes like woodcutters. Yahweh brings punishment on Ammon. Okay, Ammon means built up or trained of. Okay, of no, and no means disrupting. Pharaoh and Mitzrayim, so a great house, and Egypt or defenses. Okay, Ammon is also a capital of Upper Egypt. Amos 5:19. This is to the house of Yisrael to seek Yahweh. As when a man flees from a lion and a bear shall meet him, or entered in his house, rested his hand on the wall, and a serpent shall bite him. Yahweh says after that he has hated and despised their festivals and isn't pleased with the assemblies. Amos chapter 9 verse 3. Amos, he saw Yahweh standing by the altar, and he had said, smite the column head so that the threshold shakes, and you can continue reading that. Verse 3 it says, and if they hide themselves on the top of Carmel, from there I shall search and take them. And if they hide from before my eyes at the bottom of the sea, from there I shall command the serpent, and it shall bite them. Micah chapter 7 verse 16 through 17. Let the Gentiles see and be ashamed of all their might. Let them put their hand over their mouth. Let their ears be deaf. Let them lick the dust like a serpent. Let them come trembling from the strongholds like snakes of the earth. Let them be afraid of Yahweh, our Elohim, and fear because of you. Tehillim, which is Psalm 58, verse 4 through 6. This is called Do Not Destroy, a poem of David, and David means well-beloved or dear. Okay, their poison is like the poison of a snake, like a deaf cobra that stops its ear, so as not to hear the voice of whispers or a skilled caster of spells. O Elohim, break their teeth in their mouth. Psalm 91:13. This is talking about he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High. You tread upon a lion and a cobra, young lion and serpent, you trample underfoot. Psalm 104:26. There go the ships. There is that Leviathan, whom you have made to play therein. 104, verse 3. This is the Psalm of David. Okay, he's talking about, rescue me, O Yahweh, from men of evil. Verse 3. They sharpen their tongues like a snake. The poison of cobras is under their lips. Selah. And Selah means rock. Mishle, Proverbs, chapter 23, verse 31 through 32. This chapter starts out by saying, when you sit down to eat with a ruler, okay, do not look on the wine when it is red, when it gives its color in the cup. As it flows smoothly, in the end it bites like a snake and stings like an adder. Mishle, Proverbs 30, verse 18 through 19. This is the words of Agur, which means gather to harvest, son of Yaki, which means obedient, a message. Are too marvelous for me, and for which I do not understand. The way of an eagle in the Shamaim, the way of a snake on a rock, the way of a ship in the heart of the sea, and the way of a woman with a girl. This is the way of an adulterous woman. She shall eat and wipe her mouth and say, I have done no wickedness. Eob, which is Job 26, verse 12 through 13. By his power he has calmed the sea, and by his understanding he struck down Rahab. Proud. By his Ruha, his spirit, he adorned the Shamaim, the heaven. His hand whirled the fleeing serpent. Eob 41. This whole chapter is talking about the Leviathan. So I'm not going to read that, but I encourage you, read that. Job chapter 41. I'm just going to read verse 15. A row of scales are his pride, closed up, a binding seal. Chapter 40, if you go back to that, speaks of the behemoth, which means beast or dinosaur. Kohalith, which is Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 8 through 11. He who digs a pit falls into it, and whoever breaks through a wall is bitten by a snake. He who quarries stones is hurt by them. He who splits wood is endangered by it. If an iron tool is blunt, and one does not sharpen the edge, then he needs more strength, and wisdom is advantageous to make right. If the snake bites without enchantment, then the master of the tongue is no better. Now I'm going to read from Enoch, which is Enoch, chapter 69, verse 6. This is a brief description as the chiefs over the messengers, and over hundreds, and over 50s, and over 10s, okay? And the third was named Gadrael, okay? Now, I am not given any homage or anything to any of these fallen ones. I'm only reading from Scripture, so please just understand that. He is the third of the 5 Satans, the Nephilim, okay? It is he who showed the children of men all the smitings of the death, and led astray Hawa, the life-giver, Eve, okay? And showed the shield and the coat of mail, and the sword for battle, and all the weapons of death to the children of men. And from his hand they have proceeded against those who dwell on earth from that day and for eternity. So also, Gadrael, if you take that word, it could come from Gad, that could be short for it, and that is also a pagan word which means fortune or luck. Alright, in the garden, this is Yashar. Yashar, also known as Yashar, the book of the upright. Okay, chapter 1, verse 9 through 10. And the serpent which Elohim had created with them in the earth came to them to incite them to transgress the command of Elohim, which he had commanded them. And the serpent enticed and persuaded the woman to eat from the tree of knowledge. And the woman listened to the voice of the serpent, and she transgressed the word of Elohim, and took from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And she ate, and she took from it and also gave her husband, and he ate. So in Bereshith, Genesis 3:16, to the woman he said, I greatly increase your sorrow and your conception, bring forth children in pain, and your desire is for your husband, right? Not for anybody else. Your desire is for your husband, and he rules over you. Yashar, 73. This is in the 55th year of the reign of Pharaoh, okay, where Yahuwah granted favor over Moshe, and he reigned over Cush. Cush means black or Ethiopia. And in chapter 73, I think I have verse 20 through 24. I will put all of the scripture in the description box for you. And on the third day the sovereign said to them, strengthen yourselves and become mighty men, and each man put on his armor and gird his sword upon him, and each man ride his horse, and each take his young stork in his hand. And we will rise up and fight against the city at the place where the serpents are. And all the people did as the sovereign had ordered. And each man took his young one in his hand. And they went away, and when they came to the place of the serpents, the sovereign said to them, each man send out his young stork upon the serpents. And each man sent out his young stork at the sovereign's order. And the young storks ran upon the serpents, and they devoured them all and destroyed them out of that place. And when the sovereign and people had seen that all the serpents were destroyed in that place, all the people raised a great shout. Yobelim, which is Jubilees, chapter 3. I would, again, there's 35 verses in this, so I'm not going to read it all, but I encourage you, Jubilees is an apocryphal book. If you have that, or if you want to get it, chapter 3, I'm just going to read verses 17 through 19. And after the completion of the 7 years which he, Adam, had completed there, 7 years exactly, and in the second month on the 17th day of the month, the serpent came and approached the woman. And the serpent said to the woman, has Elohim commanded you, saying, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And she said to him, of all the fruit of the trees of the garden, Elohim has said to us, eat. But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim has said to us, you shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. And the serpent said to the woman, you shall certainly not die, for Elohim knows that on the day you eat of it, your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be like Elohim, and you shall know good and evil. So I'm going to read this last passage, and then we'll continue this study in the next video. Okay, so in Macabees, 4 Macabees, chapter 18, verse 6 through 9, this is titled The Mother's Address to Her Children. This is telling the Yisrael children, Yashar children, to obey the instructions. The mother of 7 sons expressed also these principles to her children. I was a pure virgin and did not go outside my father's house, but I guarded the rib from which woman was made. No seducer corrupted me on a desert plain, nor did the destroyer, the deceitful serpent, defile the purity of my virginity. In the time of my maturity I remained with my husband, and when these sons had grown up, their father died. A fortunate man was he, who lived out his life with good children, and did not have the grief of bereavement. So I encourage you to read that whole chapter. There's a lot of wisdom in there, and you really have to discern it. So, it's something that you pray about, ask him for wisdom and understanding and discernment with his spirit. I'm going to end this video here, and I'll see you in the next video. Shalom.